Amy Alkeria, George Werb, and Sarah Green. Do these names mean anything to you? Perhaps these three fairly inconspicuous names will take on a whole lot more meaning when you learn that they were all children who died whilst under the care of a chain of private psychiatric hospitals in this country. Amy was at the Priory at Ticehurst when she became one of 282 hospitalised mental health patients to die in 2013. When I was admitted to the same hospital in 2017, it was still very easy to see why such a tragedy had happened. The rising crisis in the NHS mental health sector doesn't need to happen. It can be avoided. The problem is we aren't helping people early on, but waiting for things to get worse when it's too late. With proper funding for early intervention, community and mental health care, I wouldn't have had 3 hospital admissions in the past 3 years. I wouldn't have been restrained more times than I can count, and I wouldn't have been held down and injected with tranquilizers after I was sectioned back in November. With proper funding, I would have got the help I needed before things became too late. Before things got so bad, I had to be sent to a hospital that charged the NHS £800 a day for my care. According to the BBC, in 2016, spending on private mental health beds by NHS trusts had increased by 42% since 2011, with the 40 trusts that shared their data spending an approximate total of £101 million on sending their patients to private healthcare beds alone, spending which could have been going on stopping people getting to the point of needing hospitalisation. 1 in 4 of us will suffer from a mental health issue at some point in our lives. But do you know that the target wait time between being referred to mental health services by your GP and actually being seen by a mental health service is 18 weeks? And according to the Samaritans, suicides are increasing by 10.9% each year. This isn't something we can ignore or paper over with an annual Time to Talk day. When somebody famous commits suicide, I'm sure you've seen the influx of posts on your Facebook feed, telling friends to reach out. Well, what happens when there's no services to reach out to? Or it takes them 18 weeks to reply to you? Continuous budget cuts to community mental health often mean that this scenario is not uncommon. When I was first diagnosed with depression by my GP, I was 15. Had there been the funding to give me the therapy that I needed with the child and adolescent mental health service in the community, I'm convinced I would have got better. I'm convinced I wouldn't have been admitted to a psychiatric hospital a few months later after 2 suicide attempts in as many weeks. I'm convinced my admission wouldn't have been 6 months long, slap bang over the top of year 11 and my GCSEs. All right, it's hard to be sure. It's hard to be sure that injecting funds into community and early intervention mental health care would result in fewer psychiatric admissions. But it could help a full-to-capacity inpatient service who often find the demand for beds far outstrips the supply. It's hard to be sure that with a great deal of those beds subsequently not taken up, they would no longer have to be outsourced to private companies like the Priory Group, saving both money and lives in the long run. According to the Mental Health Education and Resource Centre in Canada, early intervention is proven to reduce the need for hospitalisation. It literally nips cases in the bud. It's hard to be sure, I'll grant you, but I'm pretty damn sure all the same. My story is all too common, but it's one of the only ones you'll hear. According to a 2016 study, teens with mental health issues are far more likely to have to repeat a year of school or drop out altogether. That leaves the odds a little stacked against us to get to speak at places like this. I don't think that those in charge of our budget are rubbing their hands together at the thought of mental health patients dying, but I do think that mistakes in part are made because voices like mine are not being heard. Why is it that the voices of the disabled struggle to find audiences in our lawmakers and our budget handlers? Is it because the opinions of the mentally ill are still viewed as unintelligent and not on par with our neurotypical counterparts? I used to say, I want the phrase, I'm depressed, not 3 years old, tattooed across my forehead. And that still seems oddly relevant. Amy Alkeria, George Werb, and Sarah Green. Now you know their names, but you can't hear their voices. My name is Molly. You can hear me, and you can listen to me. I'm speaking now because I'm tired of being silenced. I'm tired of being told that I'm too ill, too autistic, or too young to have a valid point. That me being diagnosed with some mental health conditions, including Asperger's syndrome, gives others free rein to decide that my opinion doesn't matter. I have experience, I have solutions, and I need you to listen. Thank you.